The plan is changing. I want to speedrun the entirety of the Twilight Forest. Why, you might ask? Well, I want to use these runic bricks in a build. I have an idea that I want to have as the entryway into a farm, and I want to start building farms as soon as I can because I want to build a school. And to do that, I'm going to need blocks, and I don't want to farm every one of the blocks by hand. So we're going to automate that process. But if we're going to take the time to have a build to house all of our farms, I want the build to look exactly the way I want it to. And the only way to really do that is to get the bricks. And to get the bricks, you got to beat the Twilight Forest because those bricks only are available at the end. And you can't enter the end of the Twilight Forest without having to gone through every step along the way. To those who are uninitiated, the Twilight Forest is a very specific kind of environment, very highly magical. And you have to go through all the previous steps, proving your worth one step at a time, progressing slowly through the mod pack. Well, I don't want to progress slowly through the mod pack. I'm going to beat it this episode because I want to build those bricks next episode. So we're going to speed run this one. To accomplish this, we're going to lean very heavily into the Ars Nouveau School of Magic, but we are not going to do a 101 of it just yet. But I will give you the cliff notes so that way you're able to keep along and track our progress and what we are doing. Now, Ars Nouveau is attainable. The Worn Notebook is obtainable through the Akasic Tome. The Akasic Tome is given to you for free in the beginnings part of the quest book. So you grab your Akasic Tome, you right click, you can see there's a bunch of manuals that help guide you in your journey in becoming a witch. And you can pick the Worn Notebook. The Worn Notebook is the first part of the Ars Nouveau School of Magic page here. And as you can see, I already have a Novice Spellbook ready to go. The Novice Spellbook allows you to use more glyphs than what the Caster Tome had because they are not prescribed. You will be able to inscribe them yourself in up to 10 different spell slots. Now, as you can see here, I have Projectile and a new one that I have learned, Conjure Mage Light, which, when you point it down at the ground, creates a little ball of light. This is a fantastic tool to pick up early on. It is a very inexpensive craft, though it does require a little bit of iron. And with this, you are able to generate an infinite number of lights, not having to be tied down by how much coal that you have or how much charcoal that you're able to produce. It is replenishable with magic. It is permanent and it will stay that way forever. But of course, there's going to be more to it than that. This is a fundamental tool for our approach with the Twilight Forest today. Now, right here in front of me, you can see the Scribe's Table. The Scribe's Table is one of the important components, one of the important pieces of equipment for Ars Nouveau. When you have a Novice Spellbook in your hand or any other greatest spellbook, you can right-click it and see all the different glyphs and learn them. Let's pick something that's actually very difficult. So this one here, Smelt. When you activate it, you will see the items hovering above the table, and if there are nearby inventories that have these items in it, which I do not have any of these items, so it's static at the moment, you can see that they float above it. When these items are thrown at the table, a glyph will be returned to you that you can right-click to learn how to use that glyph at your leisure with the spellbook. But to demonstrate it pulling items out of the inventory, this one here is Conjure Mage Block, which is just 8 pieces of glass, and it doesn't matter which pieces, which color, which brand, which type. So I'm going to go ahead and select this because I should have those available. And as you can see, the glass is coming out of a nearby inventory, taking it out of the storage controller, which has access to all of these inventories. Go ahead and make the glyph for me. Thank you very much. It pops off the table, and then you right-click to consume, and as you can see, we've unlocked Mage Block. On the right hand, you can see there are 3 different tabs. These require different levels of spell books. The Novice Spellbook is level 1. We will not be able to evolve past that. There are a couple of spells that we are going to grab because, as I will show you as we progress through the pack in rapid fire succession, I'm going to be utilizing heavily into a couple spells, but we will not actually have to deviate beyond the Novice Spellbook. The next one I'm going to be shooting for is Place Block, so let me grab the resources for that because I need to somehow get a hold of Manipulation Essence. And yeah, we'll go from there. Also of note, if you notice down in the bottom left-hand corner, my mana bar has expanded. The more glyphs that your mind has access to, the better suited you are for casting spells, the more mana at your disposal. So, learning glyphs, even if they're not ones like that are useful at this time, like the Mage Block is not going to be useful for me as far as I'm aware, it's still beneficial to you to learn as many as possible to ever expand your mana pool and increase your ability to use magic. I'm finally going to be able to get my manipulation essence. It's only been like a few seconds since the last clip, but I've gone through, as you can see here, several of the quests. This one's just more of an acknowledgement on how to make spells. This one here is getting some archwood, which I already had, and another dowsing rod. We'll have to come back and talk about that at some point in the future. An imbuement chamber, which again, we're putting on the back burner for now. This is not a 101 on Ars Nouveau just yet. But then the scribe's table in front of me actually is the first time you have a choice reward for an essence. These ones here had essences, but I didn't get lucky. I got essences that I didn't need. Primarily right now, we need this particular essence for placing blocks, which is not necessary, not a requirement, but it makes a certain aspect of the Twilight Forest a little bit easier. So that's number one. So once that has been, I think I still have to make a dropper, but once that has been accomplished, we are ready with spells. The next spot, armor, because if we take a look at what I'm actually wearing, even though it's invisible, gold, and that's not gonna do. We're gonna need something a little bit tougher, and our last episode is gonna help us with that. Zombie flesh onto the drying rack so that it can cure and we can get more leather, because we are going to be making infused fabric from hexarray with our beautiful little setup here. So with a little bit of water, some leather, string, and black dye that we got from charcoal, so just cooking up logs gets us black dye, and I believe that's from courtesy of Quark. We are able to make some infused fabric, and we're going to make a couple pieces of this because we're going to make a set of armor. 18 pieces of fabric required, and we're going to be using this to make the Witch's set. Now the Witch's set is slightly weaker than Diamond, having 1 armor toughness less across the board, but it gives you a couple bonuses. Specifically, Witches will no longer bother the player, and damage from magic by 50% for wearing 2 pieces, and 3 pieces increases the magic damage that you deal, as well as 15% of magic damage is converted over to health. Now, the only downside to the Witch's set is there are only 3 pieces of it, so you will need to find another source for pants, but there are plenty of options. I'm probably just going to go with Diamond. Also, as a note, finally we can be the witch of our imagination, because I've been wearing this set in the theater of the mind, kind of going through everything. Now finally I can match in the real world. Now there's something else we can do with the witch's hat, so let's go ahead and pick a few of our extra grown mushrooms here from our little garden. We come over here to the cauldron, which has hopefully enough water in it. If we go to uses on the witch's hat, we can see no, I don't have nearly enough water, but we can also see that the mushroom witch's hat, which is exactly the same, just has a little bit different of aesthetics on it, can be made. So let me go ahead and fill this up, but there we go. And survey says, there we go. Now, there's even yet another thing we can do besides enchanting these, is you can actually dye them. So let me go ahead and get these dyed up and we'll put them on and show off the new look. So how do I look? How do I look? Finally looking the part. As much as I have the inner urge to do some sort of catwalk fashion show bit and have this be like this big rigmarole, I just, we ain't got the time. This episode is going to be jam-packed as it is. So yeah, off we go. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to make a couple coffers right quick. Now, coffers are the aesthetic shulker boxes that I mentioned in the previous episode. They're very inexpensive to make, taking 5 mahogany planks and a couple pieces of gold with just a little bit of water. However, something to note, the mahogany woodcutter from Hexarray will also give you 5 planks for the cost of 1 single mahogany plank. Yes, there we go. 5 planks for the cost of 1 single log. So instead of getting the 4 that you would traditionally get, make a Hexarray woodcutter so that way you can get a little bit more bang for your buck. And I believe, well, you know, I better make the regular ones. If you mess up, you can also just go back into it and convert them over to the regular ones, so that way you are not wasting any materials. Goes in there, and as you can see, the coffer is fabricated for us. And let's go ahead and bust this out so that you can take a look at it. So the coffer, if you shift right click like that, you can actually get access to its entire inventory. As you can see, it is fairly large, fairly robust, will hold a lot of different things for you. You can right click it on the ground and it will just open up like this whenever you are nearby. A beautiful little animation. Any items that you store inside of the coffer will visually show up when looking at the coffer. It'll just fill everything out randomly. As you can see, now we have little icons of all the gold bars. They show up. Left click it like you would with a toolbox. It goes in your inventory automatically so you can't lose it. And again, if you shift right click, we can grab everything out of it just like that. And as you can see here, they can also be named in an anvil just like you would normally be able to do. You can put them on the ground. They will show up in the tooltip right there, showing you that they are named valuables. Even when you put them on the ground, they do not lose their name. They retain their NBT data of their name, which makes them very valuable for doing that. Also forgot to mention, between episodes, went ahead and enchanted a diamond pick, and I got very lucky. It said Fortune 3, and hey, what do you know, Efficiency 4, Unbreaking 3 as well for the ride. So let's see what we get. Oh, I would love Protection 3, but we can reroll enchantments using this button here. It does take up a little bit of experience as well as some Lapis Lazuli. Protection 2, good enough for me. Probably should go for Featherfall, but that's fine. We're not going to bother. Protection 2, good enough for me. Because again, we can't be picky. Low level enchantments, already out of the ability to do these ones. Protection 1, we don't really worry about Unbreaking. Oh, Mana Boost actually. Ooh, Mana Regen. You know what? We'll do that. Oh, I still got Protection 2. See what I mean? Lucky. Protection 2. All right, we'll take that. All right, so. Hey, you may not like the way the glints and enchantments look, and you can modify those on your side, especially in a single player game. It's not a big concern because you can just dampen it, which I am definitely going to do. But something that you can have in the future, if you wanted to, is there are runes, the clear runes right here from Cork, which will, oh, that's a white rune. There's a blank rune. This can get rid of enchantment glints or even change the color of them. So keep an eye on these in chests when you're looting pretty much anywhere in any of the worlds. They will help you not look like this, because I don't think this looks very good. I was wrong. I guess it's not an option in this, so this is what I'm going to look like for now. I'm in desperate need of glint runes if anyone has any. Thanks. Also, as a last minute check, you notice that I have more than 10 hearts. That is because I've been eating a variety of foods, and one of the ways that can help with that is a lunchbox. So if we go to lunchbox here, it starts off by a paper recipe, and then a iron one, and then a gold one. And what this does is it's just storage for having a bunch of different foods that you can eat when you're hungry. And as long as you have a variety of foods in there, you'll keep from losing hearts. And if you continuously eat a bunch of valuable foods, like, like just the different dietary needs, you'll be able to get even more hearts. Hello, sir. You're going to go now. Come here. At least test out this armor. He got stuck somehow. And he's gone. Oh, also, you'll notice that when I'm killing things, I'll sometimes unlock identities. It's because I have identities stored on here. This is just my own little personal brand of magic for in case I wanted them for any cinematics. It does nothing for gameplay because I don't use them for fighting anything. So if you see that pop up on the screen, that's what it's for. Pretty convenient of him to show up and be there for that. Oh, and I guess I can demonstrate the lunchbox now. Thank you, Mr. Enderman. You're really helpful. So as you can see, I ate another meal that was gave me a few extra hearts. Fantastic. Almost 13 minutes in the episode, we're now finally making the portal. Prep work and modded, right? How we begin. First is a very simplistic ritual. You start off with a hole in the ground. That is important. Then surround that hole with beautiful flowers. Then throw in the diamond that you forgot because you told yourself you weren't going to forget the diamond. Once you have that diamond that you totally did not forget, stand back after you toss it into the pool of water. A lightning bolt will strike down. That lightning bolt will hit you. I have no idea if that would actually activate a creeper or anything of the like, but yes, just make sure to stay clear and then simply walk through. And here we are in the land of the ever Twilight. I hope I find some ruins soon. This just looks terrible. Okay, so as I said before, the Twilight Forest is severely regimented. You are very much encouraged to participate in every single event in order, and you are unable to progress in certain ones without having actually activated other ones. You can try, you can brute force it in a couple situations, but for the most part, you're in it for the long haul. So how it begins is in this forest here. We go over to the Twilight Forest page. This is pretty much the progression. You come through the forest, then we find a raven, then we kill a naga. So we're going to start with those ones. To find a naga, looks like we didn't get lucky and spawn near one. There is a maze that we're going to locate. But to find a raven, usually a little bit easier. We just look for a piece of lapis lazuli on top of some obsidian. Usually they're everywhere, but unfortunately, also on the, oh, there we go, right through the trees. You see that? That usually is an indication that there's a raven nearby. So we're going to go over that way. But before we leave completely, even though I have a bottle of dimensional tears, it's usually a good idea to set a waypoint at here, so that way you don't lose in case you have to go back the manual way. Step 1, find a raven and then be a terrible person. Once you are sufficiently terrible enough of a person, you get a raven feather. Find the labyrinth. I went ahead and crafted an explorer's compass. This is the counterpart to the nature's compass in that it allows you to find structures. Just take some cracked stones, some cobwebs, and a compass, and we can use this to find the Naga, which is where we start after you heard a poor little raven. And this is where the mahogany broom begins to pay dividends, because you can just save a lot of time and effort and simply fly wherever the compass points you. And now we approach the den of the beast, but he's actually quite the pushover. To kill him, all we're going to be using is the Ars Nouveau spellbook and a sword. So the Ars Nouveau spellbook, we're going to go with projectile, harm, amplify, which increases the damage. This is a level 1 glyph that is made with just a diamond pickaxe, so very inexpensive. We also have 240 mana, so we actually cast this quite a few times now. And then of course we all know how the sword works. Probably should have enchanted it. When you hear the rattlesnake, move to the right, move to the left, just strafe a little bit. Oh, he's stuck at 90. And as you can see, with this armor set and our health now, he can't really do too much. Even when he does hit us, it isn't going to be that much. He can combo you though, so you have to be careful when he charges. That's why you want to move when you hear the rattle, because he can sweep back and forth and hit you a couple of times, and that can really take you out if you're not careful. Inside the chest, he drops a trophy as well as a couple of scales. We can discuss those in depth at a later time. Currently, we've got to keep moving. Step 2 is the Lich. This place would be covered in a magical veil that wouldn't let you get anywhere near it until the Naga has been defeated. And as you can see, they're usually very close together. Now, this is not that difficult of a place to traverse. You generally climb up the towers and along a bunch of different rooms, breaking spawners as you do, and fighting a couple mobs as you go through. Obviously, we're interested in speed running it, so we're just going to jump right to the chop. So as you can see, as I was prepping out this space here, we already got some people joining in the fight. There's a lot of spawners down below, and they can get in here and cause a lot of problems for you when you're trying to focus on the boss. If you go near that, the boss will spawn. So what we're going to do here is take advantage of Ars Nouveau's ability to place blocks at a distance. All it is a projectile and place block with a couple of blocks in your hotbar, and then all you have to do is kind of aim where you want to block off passages, as long as there's no entities in the way, and you'll get a couple blocks like that to block off that obvious skeleton spawner over there. And then there's also a staircase here and a staircase there or there, and we're going to block those off as well, so that way things can't attack us while we're fighting. Oh good, keeping themselves entertained. There's zombies trying to join the fight as well. Let me take care of these guys, clear up the space, and then we will place the rest of the blocks. Now that the room is isolated, the Lich is going to be a lot easier to take down. We won't have ads wandering into the fight. He starts off phase 1 with several golden shields surrounding him that are semi-translucent. This makes him impervious to all damage. The only thing you can do is break the shields, and the only way to accomplish that is either to reflect his projectiles or his mirror images projectiles at him. Another strategy, which is my preferred method, is to use the Lich as a human shield or as a skeletal shield from his mirror images, letting them cast directly at him, so that way they can do damage to him. You do have to move a lot, because if all 3 spells hit you, it is quite a lot of damage. You should be able to survive any single spell's damage fairly easily though, even with gear set that is mildly or significantly worse than what we've got here. But 3 explosions in a row can be devastating, even to the, except for the strongest of armors. You can tell the difference between the mirror images and Lich based on the color of their crown. The other 2 mirror images are a lot more washed out, shadowy and subdued, whereas the Lich keeps his colors and keeps the brilliant luster of his yellow crown. Phase 2, the Lich is now vulnerable to attacks. However, he summons several zombie minions to assist him in combat, in addition to spell slinging, so throwing his spells at you. The zombies can be consumed by the Lich in order to restore a bit of HP, so you can manage juggling between doing damage. If you do enough damage, then you can completely ignore the zombie minions. Elsewise, it's a good idea to take out the zombie minions and deal damage to the Lich. You do not want to focus solely on the zombies, however. That was a battle of attrition, and you will lose that battle. Phase 3 is the enrage phase. He will just simply get really angry at you and start charging you with the sword. Just out DPS him. Next up, we have the Minotaur's Labyrinth. Now, the Labyrinth is not a difficult structure by any means. There are multitudes of mobs underneath it, as well as traps for some of the loot. But the main problem is that it just takes forever to navigate. It is quite the time sink. Unless, of course, you have an R spellbook. So with our spellbook, we're able to break the walls instantaneously. This is normally an arduous process that takes quite a bit of time to get through them. But thankfully, we're able to punch through the walls and go where we need to go. In the labyrinth, you're going to run across minotaurs, and they're going to begin performing the Running Man, a dance from the 90s. All you have to do is treat it the same way as you treat with the Naga when it did its rattlesnake charge. Simply strafe out of the way. They cannot turn very quickly. It is a fair amount of damage if they do hit you, though, so you want to be careful of it. We drop down the floor and then proceed to the boss's room, and then light up all the hallways surrounding the boss's room. For the one part, we don't want ads, but for the second part, he does the charge attack very similar to the minotaurs in the labyrinth. So the easiest way to avoid those is to have the distance, the hallways, be able to navigate so that way we're not anywhere near him when he's charging. The reward is meat stroganoff, and eating it gets you to the fire swamps and unlocks the next leg of the Twilight journey. So this is where the paths branch. We can either go Night or Yeti. We're going to go for the Night. Having defeated the Minotaur, you now have access to the Dark Forest, because normally when you try to go in here, you'll see veins of dark crud coming out of the sky, making it very difficult to navigate and very difficult to go into. Every so often, this is a pretty common glitch for the Twilight Forest, you'll see this, which means this is where we need to go. We could break through here, but without activating the pedestal to get in the proper way, you will not be able to progress the quest. So what we're going to do is land here and try and locate it. There's some pretty intense mobs in here, so you do want to be cautious when moving around. That one will cast range attacks as well as giant spider. Always trouble when you have giant spiders. So there are usually 2 floors to a typical night stronghold, and the room we're looking for is this one over here with all the coffin looking things, the crypts. Now it's not always in a closed space, but this is what we're looking for. We're primarily looking at this pedestal. One of the things that you've been picking up along the way are these trophies for having defeated certain bosses. This is how we access into, hold on one second. This is how we access the night stronghold. And then from here, yet another maze that we have to navigate to fight yet another boss at the end of it. Also of note, there is treasures hidden all over the place. There's treasure in here, most likely. Let's take a look. But you have to be cautious because they are also trapped most of the time. This one just had some silverfish underneath it. Treasure, yup, nope. So right there, trap chest, TNT. Gotta be cautious when looting this place. But otherwise, it's very fruitful if you're looking for some resources. Definitely take the time to loot up the place. I am not going to be doing that. We have things to do. Entering the crypt, you will face off against several suits of armor. They will take turns becoming the skeleton. The skeleton will determine what types of attacks they will attempt to do back to you. This is a relatively straightforward fight. It's a bit of a slobber knocker, though, in the fact that you're just going to be forced to use nothing but melee. Ours cannot help us here. Unfortunately, they are immune to all kinds of range attacks. So in my playthrough here, I just went with food in my offhand and a sword in my main hand. You could potentially have a shield, and it might make it easier for fighting in this case, but because mobility is a little bit more valuable considering you're surrounded by multiple enemies, I just carried food in my offhand. It's up to you how comfortable you are with the shield. You can do that, it's fine. The next step on this train is the Urgas. Now the Urgas is usually a little bit deeper into the dark forest. You see the color of the leaves change and you come across this large tower. Now this one you have to play Ghostbusters. There are several points in this fight where there is a redstone activated block that you can stand on a pressure plate whenever there's little miniature gas nearby. You slay those to charge up the redstone block, and then when you activate it again, or when you activate it, the Urgas, which is this giant gas in the air, will be pulled down into it, and then you can start critting them out. As we fly up to the top of it, you can see 4 rooms adjacent to a central platform where the boss spawner sits. And then we do a flyby of the entire tower because this is one of the more unique structures in Twilight Forest. It has a bunch of parkour as well as puzzles that you have to get through there. So if this is your first time going into this, I would recommend actually doing this the traditional way. There's an entrance at the base of the tower and just working your way up. We find one of the rooms to land in and then secure the entirety of it with blocks so that way we prevent errant sightlines from the gas that are going to be flying around. In an ongoing theme in the Twilight Forest, if you can prevent ads from participating in the boss fight, it tends to go a lot smoother. Also crafted up a lever because it is good practice to have a source that can activate a redstone block, because during the course of this fight, the pressure plate can be broken and it can be a little chaotic to try and find it in the middle of the fight. Activated the boss, retreated to our secure room, waiting for the first wave of gas to spawn. And the Urgats has two different attacks. One of them is a very typical gas fireball, but enhanced so that it fires multiple projectiles. And I'm not 100% certain if you could reflect those. I typically just rely on the ghost busting trap to pull the gas in to do the damage. But then the secondary attack is the crying tears that will fall down. You need to have some cover over your head, otherwise you're going to take damage repeatedly while the gas chases you around the arena. And the gas tears, I believe, can also kill the smaller gas, so you have to be proactive and move from room to room fighting them, so that way he's not able to heal, because if he kills one of them, he heals, and you also want to kill them to prep the traps so that you can do more damage to the boss. So moving room to room, kill the small gas, pull the big boss down so that you can smack him, and then this fight is pretty much done. Next up is the Yeti, and the Yeti lives in the ice biomes and in one of these structures specifically. Usually there's about 3 of these surrounding the ice platform over there, where the next step is going to be the Ice Queen. This is a very straightforward mid-boss fight. Fly in on your broom, prep the field so that you get some light orbs so that you can see what's going on. Make sure to equip your slime boots so that the Yetis can't throw you. If they do grab you and throw you, most of the damage that you take from them is going to be fall damage, which is negated completely by the slime boots. And kill any hostile mobs from range to clear the battlefield ready for the boss. The mid-boss fight itself is very straightforward. He has 2 particular modes that he alternates between. One of them is Flail, which he will fling his arms around and throw ice blocks at you, as well as have columns of ice appear. Simply move over to the left and to the right, kind of stutter stepping. You don't really need to be in a hard strafe, and do range attacks when he's in this mode. But then he goes into Crying, where he kind of like tires himself out. Maybe it's Sweating. You can come in for melee attacks at that point, and then you'll back off when he restarts the Flail cycle. That's all there is to this fight. He will eventually fall. Next up is the Ice Queen, and this is the first boss that we actually thoroughly cheese. You fly up to the highest point of the Aurora Castle and break a hole through the walls. Normally you cannot break blocks until you've defeated the Ice Queen. Then you can collect them and use them for building materials to your heart's content. But in this particular case, ours again allows us to bypass that, so we poke a hole into her chamber, have just enough space for her to climb up, use a trapdoor so we can go into swim mode, and since she can't ram into us, we can just keep pelting away at her. How this fight is typically supposed to go is you climb up into her room, and she has this flotilla of ice that she uses to try and smack into you. That's her only primary attack that I can recall. It is not a difficult fight. It is a lengthy slog because there's not a lot of angles that you can attack her from. At no point is she invulnerable to your attacks. There's just a lot of times where you're not going to have the angle necessary to hit her. So I did this just for the sake of time. Next, we're off to the Fire Swamp to fight off against the Hydra. We prep the battlefield by just getting rid of all the little plumes of fire that can come out of the ground so that we have a nice flat surface to work with. You do got to be cautious though, because there is lava underneath them, so you want to make sure that the ground is flat in case a fire ellipses, as I call it, comes rolling in there and causes an explosion. The heads have 2 different attacks that they do primarily. One of them is a flame of jet flame, and the other one I call fire ellipses because it's 3 little fireballs in rapid succession. They can roll on the ground, and you can reflect them back to the Hydra to deal the most damage to it. That is the primary source of damage for us, because I don't have the powerful enough sword or powerful enough spell to really make a dent in the Hydra's health pool. It is a very tanky monster. It took about 12 minutes to take them down with our current level of power. We did have on the offhand the R's book for the double harm amplify to do at least a little bit of chip damage while we're waiting for the appropriate breath. If you get a fire breath, you see little fire particles coming out of one of the mouths, simply move away from it. So if it's the leftmost head, moving to the right is typically what you want to do. If it tries to trap you by having its rightmost head then also do fire plumes, simply back away from the Hydra. That'll give you enough breathing space to be able to dodge both of those attacks. If you do try going up close to it, you can melee the heads if you have a very powerful blade, but my blade wasn't nearly strong enough to make a dent in it, so I didn't even bother to try. It can cut off the head though and produce more of them, which makes the fight a lot more chaotic, but doing it this way, it actually only can stick with 3 heads, making this a very chill fight. You can denote when he's going to do the fire ellipses when you see smoke particles instead of flame particles, and that's your time to shine. That is when you are going to reflect the attacks. And then after enough time with enough endurance and fortitude, more than technique or more than power, he will fall. So ultimately, the Hydra's lair was definitely worth it. If we take a look at this, and this, and this, and this, along with a little bit of this. So yeah, that made the slog worth it. One last hurdle before we are able to get to the final castle and get the blocks that we need for our build for next episode is we go up into the clouds and you see giant versions of yourself. You can get giant blocks of cobblestone and wood in order to craft a giant's pickaxe. I go ahead and pick up a few of those using R's to break them at a distance, which is nice. But we're not actually going to make one. We're not actually going to use one because we can use R's to break the giant obsidian that you would normally break with this giant's pickaxe. We just have to go down into the troll caves to locate it. And what do you know? We actually landed on top of it thanks to the explorer's compass, pointing us right to the center of the troll cave. And now we can approach the castle with the greatest of ease of the flying trapeze. And that's it. We can now begin to get these blocks right here. This is what I wanted. This was what all of the marbles were for. Now I realize it's a bit of an injustice to do the Twilight Forest like this, you know, just speed run it as quickly as possible, but it is something that I have the ability to do. Obviously we have. I really want these blocks behind me. I really do for the build that we're gonna have in the next episode. And yes, that will have to be a next episode thing because unfortunately we're gonna be out of video time. This video is gonna be very long at this point, but yeah, it is a fun dimension to visit. Highly recommend it. We're going to probably properly take a much longer, deeper look at it at some point in the future. But for now, I figured this was fine. I hopefully made it easy enough to follow along with what went on. So now the time has come to say goodbye. But before we do, let me just say thank you so much for all the lovely comments that I've gotten thus far. I want to once again thank Firepower for putting lovely comments and positivity, because it means a lot to have someone take notice and actually give a care about you. So I'm very appreciative of that. And also Alexander Miller, let me throw their comment on screen. I had a fantastic suggestion to throw some color into this cave, and I don't know why it didn't occur to me other than maybe not having silk touch, but there's actually an ore that is perfect because it's specifically around hexarray. I have to go locate some, but I think I have an idea for how we're going to add a little splash of color into this cave. So this hopefully will be an improved site. Maybe not quite on par as this, but definitely an improved site. So that's it for me today. Thank you again so much. Goodbye.